Welcome to Talking Points. I'm Esme Murphy with WCCO, and today we are talking to the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of Minnesota, Thom Petersen. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you testified a couple of days ago, and it sounds like you have a hell of a lot that you're dealing with. You've got tens of millions of dollars of federal grants that are on hold. Can you describe that situation and the impact for Minnesota farmers?
Yeah, it's really a day-to-day, hour-to-hour situation. As working through the previous administration, there were many grants that were awarded through the state, and that's a normal process that we've had through many administrations and over the years. And so some of the grants may be to help farmers that are beginning growing fruits and vegetables that are then going to sell them into a marketplace or be donated for hunger programs. Some of the grants are to help farmers.
And those are on pause.
Those are on pause. And so, and again, very important, if you're going to be growing fruits and vegetables, you may be starting that in the next couple of weeks or so in a greenhouse that you are then going to plant out in late April or May to use at a farmer's market. So a lot of uncertainty to farmers. But yep.
Well, you also testified that there were also freezes on grants for research, where your folks, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, are doing important research. What's the impact of that?
And that too, as we kind of get to just starting to know that, as what are the impacts on not just at the Department of Agriculture, but really in our partnerships with the University of Minnesota. So, we talk right now about avian influenza issues like that. We talk about diseases in our soybeans, our wheat, all these things that are continuously foodborne pathogens, all these different things that are important. They've been put there for a reason,
right.
because they help us get solutions that
right.
we need.
So what's happening? Are these scientists just stopping? Is it just, what's going on in your offices, in your labs?
In ours, our lab has been able to continue our funding. What I worry more about is the University of Minnesota and the funding that goes to those folks. And my understanding is they have been told that they are done. And so some of those it is very concerning. But again, our department, Agriculture in Minnesota, is well known throughout the world for the work that they do. And so, we're going to have to see how that plays out, because you don't, just hire somebody new and start up a whole new program, and I worry about this a lot.
Okay. The avian flu, obviously this is an enormous deal across the country, and obviously right here in Minnesota. It sounds like there are freezes on programs that directly affect the avian flu. Tell us about that, and also there are freezes to inspections. That sounds really scary, frankly.
And I think that avian influenza is something that we've been dealing with in Minnesota a long time. Minnesota, we're proud that we're number one in turkey. Turkey's grown and raised, and so that's a big. We have big companies in Minnesota that depend on that. We also have chickens and everything else, and so we need to be combating that on all fronts. And you hear that egg prices. Everybody talks about egg prices right now. And what are we doing about that? So to me, having situations where we're laying off staff that work on research, do lab testing on that, maybe do
and that's
work with
happening.
And that is
layoffs
happening. There's been furloughs on
here
those.
In Minnesota?
Yes, in Minnesota. But what's kind of confusing, though, and this is, again, day-to-day, hour-to-hour, as I said, is some of those people are being brought back now because, and that's my concern that we've seen. We've seen across different agencies, we've seen mass furloughs. You're a probationary employee, you're done. But we're saying, we maybe need our loan officers, we maybe need our researchers that are doing this or that, and then we bring them back the next day. So it's created a lot of uncertainty for our industry and our farmers.
Well, how about on the ground? Do you have enough inspectors to go check on the bird flu, or is it just trying to find inspectors? What's happening?
Well, our concern too is we are starting like a mandatory testing that is the USDA program, on Monday. That will test every dairy herd in the state for avian influenza. But we depend on labs to send those samples. We depend on people to be in labs. And that is, is the concern that we have. At the moment we do. But we've, had to work with the USDA. We've had delays in that, but we'll have to see how it plays out. But again, very important to our state.
All right, we've heard about the USAID being essentially eliminated or phased out, that entire department. What about the grain shipments and the commodity shipments from Minnesota farmers that have gone for years to USAID? I've heard one estimate, $70 million a year.
And
is that over?
I think it's, and I think as we try to again quantify that, it's not just wheat is our biggest, potential that we see coming out of Minnesota, but also edible beans. So think kidney beans, things like that are very popular and are very, thing that provide a lot of protein that come out of Minnesota. There's other products that may be dairy products. There's also things that we do to help farmers in other countries through the USAID program. So we are very concerned about that. I'm old enough to remember when we had a real severe world hunger issue, and I think USAID, put a big dent in that. And so we're worried about, as we go backwards in that, could create some issues.
Okay. This sounds like a very, very difficult time. One of the things you testified to is that you've got staff here, Minnesotans who work for you and work in your department, work for us, who are on hold for hours trying to find somebody because of all the layoffs or the freezes or people are being terminated. That can't be helpful.
I think it's frustrating too for just, when we're talking about government inefficiencies and we're talking about government waste and fraud and, a lot of different things. So it's frustrating, I think, to Minnesotans when we see government that doesn't work. And I worry that right now, in some cases, it's not working. And so when we can't get a hold of somebody, when we can't get an answer, is an issue. We are seeing some of our grants start to move a little bit, and that, as Commissioner of Agriculture, I think that's my job. I'll be in Washington, D.C. next week and meeting with the administration, meeting with our congressional delegation, to try to continue to talk about those grants that are frozen, the impacts on farmers, and, to see if we can't get those moving.
All right. Minnesota happens to have some very powerful members of Congress in this field, Congresswoman Angie Craig, also the two U.S. Senators, Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith. I mean, are they able to help?
They really are, and I really give a lot of props to their staff for meeting with us on a regular basis, listening to our issues of what we can access, what we need to access, helping us connect with staff has been helpful. And I will say too, along with Congressman Finstad's office has been helpful in some of the cases too as well. So we have to it's a critical time right now for some of our farmers. So that is, I feel, is my job as commissioners to relay that message and see what we can do to try to keep things moving for our state. You
seem very calm. I mean, it sounds like the situation is really pretty dire. You've got fires all bursting out all over the place. I mean, are you going to get through this? And are Minnesota farmers going to get through this?
Yeah, I don't really feel like I have the luxury to contemplate that at the moment. I think we try to dig in and say, here is what we're dealing with at the moment. That we have farmers. It's very tough right now for our crop farmers. That we need to be advocating for whether it's more trade access, for better price support, for a farm bill. All these things they do add up for our farmers, for stress. And there are a lot of farmers. Some farmers may not see any impacts to this. Beef farmers, for example, right now, markets are really good. But for some farmers, it's a really tough time at the moment.
Okay, and specifically, would that be what kinds of farmers?
I would say, anybody that's, some of our farmers that are raising our main commodities in the state that are grains are corn, soybeans, and wheat. In certain parts of the state, that's been a really tough one. Those prices are down, the inputs are still up. And we need to continue to build those markets and try to build that price up.
What is going on with the wolf tracking program?
Trapping,
it sounds like you are trapping program. You're not able to hire the contractors that you are expected to hire. So what's going to happen in the spring?
And again, and we don't hire the wolf trappers. They're hired by an agency within the USDA, a smaller USDA Wildlife Services. And as they're not able to hire their own contractors, that's a problem. And so then they don't have the trappers. So when we have quite a larger wolf population in the state, and one of the ways that it's controlled is by trappers. And so to me, that is really important as we get into a spring calving season when a lot of our calves are born in Minnesota. The wolves get more active, and so that's when we send the trappers out. And
you don't have the trappers.
And they don't have the trappers, and so that's something that we're continuing to work on.
All right. Well, we'll continue to follow this. Thank you so much for your input. We really appreciate it. And that does it for this edition of Talking Points. You can always email me at esme@cbs.com. Also, please reach out in any other way that you can. That does it for this edition of Talking Points. I'm Esme Murphy, WCCO News.